Hi folks, it's Rob Flux here from Property Developer Network, coming to you for yet another of our Sunday sessions. Today I am with two illustrious guests. I have Tony Meredith and the lovely Kylie Walker. And we're going to be talking to you today about, do you get stuck? And we're going to try and reveal 7 critical things that are actually stopping you from taking action. Going to do that very much in a conversational sense. We've got some pretty awesome topics with those 7 steps that we've, 7 critical things, and we're just going to go through all the different nuances of those. So firstly, I would like to welcome Kylie and Tony to the stage. Come on board, guys. Yay! Unmute yourself, guys. Say hello.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
Hello. Hello, Rob. This is so exciting.
How are you, mate?
Mate, I'm doing really well, thanks. Really well. Had a great weekend, a busy weekend, and what a way to finish it off, hey? Having a chat to you two. So a real privilege. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And for those of you who don't know who Tony and Kylie are, so Tony and Kylie are both coaches within our Property Development Formula program. Tony has been with us right from the very, very start, and Kylie has been with us for the last 6 months or so. And it is your roles to I guess, kick everyone's butt and make them actually take action, and then pat them on the back when they're actually doing that in a range of ways to do that. And it's largely because the mindset is really at least 50% of whether or not people are actually doing anything in the property realm.
Absolutely. And, you know, you teach amazing stuff in your program, the knowledge, the depth of knowledge, the processes, the system, etc. But it's the taking action that's the bit where people tend to come unstuck. And they always start full of enthusiasm and but then it's about keeping that going. So we're going to explore, some ways that we can get people moving forward, and, because it's all around taking action towards where you want to get to.
And more importantly, whilst we're talking about it inside a property sense, it is not just a property sense that this applies. It actually applies everywhere in life. And so we can apply these 7 things that we're going to be talking about anywhere. And I highly encourage people to do exactly that.
Absolutely.
So Kylie, you're being very shy. Say something.
Oh, well, I can add to this and say that from my personal experience, from having done many things over the years and also coached a lot of people over a lot of years, is that we can know so much content and so much information, but unless we can get out of our own way, then we're never going to apply that information. So coaching is a very important aspect of personal development and helping you to achieve your goals.
And knowledge without action is not knowledge at all.
It's information gathering.
Absolutely. And we're not here to have practice runs. We're here to actually do it. So topic number 1, we said 7 things. So number 1, your purpose or your why. So why the heck are you doing this in the first place? I would have to say that when that question is asked to most people, the stereotypical response that I hear has variations around, I want financial freedom. But when you try to drill into what does that mean to you, a lot of people really, really struggle with being able to articulate what that actually means and why that's actually important to them.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing with that, Rob, is there's so many ways that you can make money. Right? You don't have to make money in property development. You can do shares or foreign exchange or sell things on eBay or whatever, right? Start a small business. And so it's not about the money side of things. Money, for me, is a byproduct when you do the thing that you love, when your feet hit the floor in the morning and you have this urge to just bound out of bed and get into that thing that you love, you're going to be far more successful at it. And that's where the money comes in. And so it's about challenging yourself. If it's property development that you want to do, why property development and money, as you said, mate, is not the answer. Because the journey of property development, as we all know, is a journey that has plenty of these, but also plenty of those as well. And so it's about getting you through the ups and the downs to take you to where you want to get to. So you really need to be clear on, what your why is. In fact, it's the very first question that we ask the students when they come into the program, above everything else, like, this is a property development program, but we actually want to focus on why do you want to do this in the first place?
And some people think their why has to be a really big thing. So for everyone, your why is different. For some people, it's they want to be able to give back in a grand scale. And I've had coaching sessions with some people where they go, I just don't have a why like that. I don't have something that's massive that's drawing me to in a big scale. So really, it's about what is it that you feel drawn to. So is it a big why, or is it something that's just smaller and more individual? Is it that you want to be the best mum that you can be and be a great example for your children, or do you want to be able to give back to your family? It doesn't have to be setting up a massive charity and doing all of this massive stuff overseas or whatever that may be. Like a lot of people, like we've suggested in our coaching sessions, Tony, is, you know, sit back and think about the things that you just love to do. You know, when you're not trying to think about what your why is, what are you naturally drawn to? So for me, in a coaching sense, I love hearing about people's stories. So I'll sit down and watch Australian Story or read an autobiography.
Yep.
So I know I'm on my right path here because I just love hearing about people, and particularly their stories of overcoming adversity. So if you can find that thing for you and, you know, work out what it is that you just feel, you know, drawn to and that you just wake up thinking about, and then it excites you, that's the path to then be following and exploring more.
And sit with it, right? It's not necessarily going to come to you the first time. And I use my example quite openly, where I started off my journey, you know, getting into property development and saying to myself that I love property development. Property development's, you know, all I wanted to do. And I realized along the way that I like property development. I like what it can do for me. I like the financial rewards. I do like, you know, a number of elements of it. But there's plenty of things that I don't like about property development. But I discovered that I loved this coaching thing. I discovered that I had a lot of people come up to me and say, hey, how are you having some early success? What is it that you're doing? I also at that time had gone and lost a heap of weight as well. So I had plenty of people come up to me and say, hey, how have you been able to go and lose this weight? And I had this light bulb moment when it's like, I'm meant to be a coach. So my journey started off wanting to get into property development. And even though I'm still in it, but I absolutely love being able to help people move forward in business, and property is a business.
Absolutely. And I think probably the key element that people forget when we ask them what is their why, that it's probably the benefit of the benefit that they really need to be searching for. So the benefit is financial freedom, but the benefit of the benefit is, what are you going to be doing with that freedom? So what is the, you know, when you have the ability to do anything that you want, what is it you are going to do? And a lot of people struggle with that. They've not actually thought about, geez, once I make it, like, what does that look like? What will I do? Will I travel? Will I spend time with the kids? Will I, and I think a lot of people are not in touch with that benefit of the benefit.
Well, it's the emotion, right? So our minds are sorted based on emotion, and it's about creating an emotion. And so money is paper, right? There's not a lot of emotion to the money, but it's the what does it do, to your point, Rob? So it's the, hey, once I have that, then I'll be able to do this, which means that I'll be able to have family experiences, which means it's going to, you know, create enormous amounts of happiness for me. You know, so 3 words that you could use, or a question that you could ask yourself is, for what purpose? So when you come up with, hey, I want to get into property development because of the money, for what purpose? You know, for what purpose? You keep asking yourself those questions, and perhaps you ask it 4 or 5 times, and then you get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and then bang, you hit the thing that is the reason for you wanting to do that. So it's tied up in the emotional side of things. And I use the example in a negative sense of how our brain sorts by emotion. If I say to people, can you remember where you were on September the 11th, 2001? Then everyone that I talk to will say yes, and they'll be able to articulate what they were doing, right? That was the day of the World Trade Center bombings. But if I say to people, what were you doing on August the 11th, 2001? They have no clue. Right? They have no clue what they were doing because it's emotion. So then when you move in a forward sense, it's around incorporate an enormous amount of emotion into what you want your future to look like. And it's going to be this gravitational pull that's going to pull you towards it, right? And that's the thing, Rob, we often talk about the difference between, you know, pushing and pulling. You know, you can push for so long, but I see a lot of people who are pushing and you run out of steam. But when there's this something that's in front of you and it just feels like this magnet that's just drawing you to it, it's a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about goals in a second, and push goals and pull goals and the like. But I guess what are some key tips for people to actually get in touch with their purpose or their why?
Yep. So first tip, make time. We don't like to sit with our thoughts. Like, it sounds so simple, right? But take the time to sit with your thoughts. Figure out, like Kylie said before, work out when is the time when you're just in flow. When is the time when life just seems so effortless, right? So just sit there and be with your own thoughts. That's a really good place to start. We use the model Ikigai in the program, which is 4 intersecting circles, and it talks from
what a fantastic segue, because
there we go.
I was just about to show the Ikigai.
Anyone would swear that this has been scripted, Rob.
So go for it, mate. I'll do the button pushing. So let's talk about Ikigai. So
the top circle should say, what do you love? Well, there you go. Ta-da, terrific. And so what is it that you love doing? How do you love to spend your time, right? And so the next circle should say, what are you good at? Yeah, correct. And so what are the things that you're good at? You've got a whole lot of skills in a whole range of things. What is it that you're good at? The next one talks about what is the world... in between, sure.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the intersection of that is your passion. And a lot of us are good at things that we love, and that's a passion that we don't necessarily make money out of, and we struggle with, do we make a career out of that, and that sort of thing. And Ikigai kind of helps us to try and harness that a little bit better. So
and these are the first 2 questions that you should ask anyway, in this order. What do you love and what are you good at? And that's a good place to start. But as Rob said, it's not the end of the story, because you can be passionate about something, but if you're not making any money out of it, then it could be a hobby, right? So the next one is, what does the world need? Don't get hung up with the word world need. What does someone else need, right? Where's there a gap in the market? Now, if you love something and the world needs it, but it's not necessarily a passion of yours, then it's a mission, right? Absolutely. So you're doing some really great stuff. It's incredibly great humanitarian, but you may not be good at it, and you definitely don't get paid for it.
Yeah, and the last one is that which you can actually get paid for. And there's a couple of intersections that come from that. So if you're good at it and you get paid for it, that's a profession. That is your day job. That doesn't mean you like it. As a matter of fact, most of us don't. And statistically, 80% of people get paid, don't like their job. So we have this profession that is, for many of us, demotivating us. And it drags us around, and it tends to be something that we put so much effort into getting further in our career and that sort of thing. And in the end of the day, we hate it. Well, so many of us do. And the last intersection, is does the world need it, and can you get paid for it? And that's a vocation. And Ikigai is right in the we can forget those ones. They're a little bit too complicated. But Ikigai sits right at the center. So you love it, you're good at it, the world needs it, and you get paid for it. And if you can find that, then if you're loving it, it doesn't feel like work. If you get paid for it, then, fantastic. And you're getting paid because the world needs it, and you're good at it. So, that's the perfect outcome. And I don't think many of us have actually put the time in to try and capture where we fit in that little quadrant.
No, and it could take a day, a week, a month, a year. Some people, go forever and may not find that purpose, as Kylie said, but it doesn't need to be this all-encompassing, huge change the world type thing. It might be enough just to get you moving in a forward direction, and your purpose can always change as well. So it doesn't have to be, this is my purpose for the rest of my life. This is my purpose for now. This is my purpose in the short term, but perhaps down the track, it can change. And what we encourage the students to do is take those same 4 headings and just put it into 4 columns, right? So what do you love, good at, world need, and what can you get paid for? And do it in 4 columns and just write with this. Now, here's the thing in property development, don't just write in property development, right? Because there's so many elements of property development. So get incredibly granular with this. There'll be parts of property development that you really, really love, and there'll be parts of property development that you really, really loathe. And that's okay. This is about working out what's the bit that you love. So get granular. So it might be that you love doing physios. It might be that you love speaking to agents. It might be, that you love searching for properties, etc. So get as granular as you can with this exercise.
And Kylie was going to say something, and Tony, I've just done the same.
I've got to be fast here. So a lot of people are living in survival mode and they've never actually asked themselves these questions. And that's why it can feel so big for some people and so daunting. So when we get out of survival mode, what does life then look like for you? So these questions are so helpful to help you get past the life that you're living in right now, if that's the space that you're in. But you can really create a different future for yourself based on asking yourselves these questions, and then to start taking the actions and start moving towards that.
There you go. So I think we've nailed topic number 1, and that's our purpose or our why. Are we all in agreement with that, folks? Awesome. Yes. So number 2, our goals. So what is it that we actually want to do? Without having a plan for where we want to go, if you don't know where you're going, then every bus on earth will get you there. Like, how do you know when you've arrived if you don't even know where it is that you want to get to?
And it's surprising that the number of people we speak to that have never actually set goals before. So we do a lot of goal setting in the initial stages of this program. And for some people, it's a very new experience. So it's so important to know what you're aiming for.
Well, it's the saying, if you aim at nothing, that's exactly what you're going to get. Yeah, and the analogy that we use is the GPS. You don't go to a new destination, type in the suburb and hope miraculously that you arrive wherever you're trying to get to. You type in the street number, the street name, the suburb, and guess what? You arrive. And our minds work exactly the same way. So the clearer that you can be on what you're going for, the easier it's going to be. Am I on or off track? And I know, Rob, in the program, you talk about a 5-year goal, a 5-year plan for everybody. And then the case is, once you've set that, you then work your way backwards. Now, if you're at home and you're going, oh my gosh, 5 years seems too far into the future. Hey, that's cool, as long as you've got something in the future. So I've had clients who work with me, they've set a 1-month goal, because they were suffering from anxiety and they found it really difficult to set something too far into the future. Perhaps it was a bridge too far. So it's about just working out where you are. Self-awareness is so important to all of this stuff. Figure out where you are. If you can set a 5-year goal, awesome. And that's the end in mind. So I read a book, Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he talks about begin with the end in mind. Right. And so that's how you should apply this to your goal setting. Begin with the end in mind. What's the end look like? And then what you do is you join the gap between where you want to be and where you are today.
And for some people, when they're setting goals and they're not doing the work that it takes to achieve them, what I've uncovered with people is they actually weren't their goals. They weren't the goals that they really wanted for them. It's the goals that they thought that they wanted, or that sounded good, or that maybe came from an ego space. But if you find that you're setting goals and you're just not doing anything towards them, you need to stop and check in with yourself and say, hey, is this something that I actually really want? Did I want this in the past and maybe it's no longer relevant for me, or I've changed, or things have changed in my life? It's so important. If you find that you're off track and just not getting anywhere, is this actually what you're striving for now? Is it going to bring meaning and purpose to your life? And if not, it's always okay to set a new goal.
And what you're saying is people think they want something like that, and they end up taking action something a little bit more like that.
It's too funny. Too funny. I've seen that 100 times, and it's still I still get a great deal of pleasure out of seeing it.
Yeah, and because we're not I don't think many of us are actually realistic with our goals. We're sold these pipe dreams of what we think is possible, but in reality, if it's a little bit too far, we tend to have it as a demotivator. It has to be something that certainly stretches us, but has to be something within our capabilities and within our reach.
Yeah, I call this the January the 1st syndrome, right? It happens every January the 1st, where people set a myriad of different goals around weight loss and cigarettes and drinking and promotions and small business, whatever it might be, or health and wellness. And come the middle of January, what happens? Right? We all nosedive. And for the reasons that Kylie talked about, we're not committed. We're not committed. The goal doesn't mean enough to us. It's like, you know what? I've gone and read the Forbes top 10 rich list. I've seen that the top 10 people are involved in property. Guess what? I'm going to make my career out of property. And go back to point number 1, which was, why do you want to get involved in this? And point number 2 is then get really, really clear on the thing that you're aiming for. right? And not just clear on what the end is, but clear on then what the pathway is between the two. Because here's the thing, a lot of people go, well, I've got a 5-year goal. Nah, I'll get to that down the track. I'll do that later. But each and every day, there are things that you can be doing that take you towards where you want to get to, right? And so you might delay something for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month or whatever. Well, guess what? Then it's taking you further away from where you want to get to. So, it's about working backwards and figuring out what is my pathway to get me, 5 years, 1 year down the track.
And sorry, go for it, Kylie.
I was going to say, the simulator that you've created, Rob, which we go through with students, is such a perfect example of being able to visually map out goals for people. So when they come into sessions with us and go, oh, this is what I want, and it's kind of like a little bit unformulated, and they want that, but they kind of can't really see that it's possible for them. Then we go through the simulator, Rob, you do your magic and do your thing, and they come away from the session going, oh my gosh, I can actually see how this is possible, and it's a realistic goal, and it's broken down into a step-by-step time frame with milestones. And what it also does is it takes the urgency away from having to achieve them. So for some people, they come, as an example, into this program, they've got to take action. They're like a bull at a gate going 50 million miles an hour, and then they slow down and they have this stop-start kind of activity happening, at some stages. And when you look at the overall plan that Rob goes through, you work out the time that you have to work through each stage of achieving your goal. And when you stay on track, you can achieve that without the stress, without the urgency, without the desperation that some people attach to achieving their goals. This is meant to be an enjoyable process. Yes, it's meant to stretch you. It's meant to be hard sometimes. If it wasn't hard, you wouldn't be growing as a person. We all have to do hard stuff all the time if we want to continue to grow and develop personally and professionally. So, you've got to do what you've got to do and stay on track. And having those visual, what would you call it, Rob? Visual
cues, a vision. You have a vision. You've got cues. It's got something in front of you. The other thing that has only just become apparent to me, probably in the last couple of months, is that as kids we were told the fable around the tortoise and the hare, and I don't know what happened to me a couple of months ago, but it came and sort of hit me in the face, and it's like, wow, I didn't think much of it as a kid. But it's so true that, to take your point, Kylie, it's like, rather than, going like a bull out of gate and running out of steam after week 2 or week 4 or whatever, chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away. And guess what happens? You look back and you go, oh my gosh, like how amazing was that, as opposed to going flat out and then just running out of puff.
Well, it comes down to, there's probably a couple of different quotations from a lot of famous people sitting out there that tend to reinforce each other. But Bill Gates famously said that we will overestimate what we can do in 12 months and underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And we tend to have this false belief that we're going to get there in that 12 months time. And so we start out with a sprint. So to touch on what you're saying, Tony, and when we don't achieve in that 12 months time, because we started as a sprint, a lot of us tend to actually give up. Now, you compound that with one of Einstein's famous quotes, and that is that compounding interest is actually the thing that actually generates the most amount of wealth. And that's the same with knowledge, compounding knowledge. And so we have to front load all of our learnings and lessons right at the very start of this, and it starts paying off at the tail end. And when we go through the simulator that Kylie was talking about, so for those who aren't in our program, the simulator is really showing people what is physically possible within inside the 5-year timeline when you have a look at projects to see how you can actually achieve that financial freedom goal. When we show that, most people haven't actually had a payday in their first 12 months. I'm going to say the majority of them don't. And yet they're able to achieve the financial freedom in 5 years. And a lot of them go into many other programs thinking that the 12 months is going to get them the financial freedom. And the reality is it won't. What it'll do is it'll set you up for financial freedom, but you still have to keep taking action for the remainder and keep compounding that knowledge and compounding that growth.
I think the other thing too, Rob, is that people get impatient. You talked about it, people don't have success in that first 12 months. I'm going to argue it's actually even shorter than that. People want success like, in 2020, everything we want things instantly. We want our food delivered instantly. We want to do something on Facebook and have a like instantly. We want all these things instantly, right? And That's not how it works in property development. Yet so many people go, well, I tried this for a week, I tried it for a fortnight, I tried it for a month, it didn't work, I'm out. As opposed to stick with it, stick with it, stick with it, stick with it. And when you stick with it long enough, you're going to be phenomenally successful.
And I think it's because I'm going to say the stigma within our industry is that for many, many, many years, it has actually been sold as a get-rich-quick scheme. And there's pictures of people sitting in front of Learjets and leaning on Ferraris and things like that that show you what, the lifestyle that you want to become accustomed to. And yes, it's absolutely possible, but it's not day one. And if you come in thinking it's day one, that's where we'll trip up.
Exactly. So be patient. Be patient. Take plenty of action, but be patient with the outcome, with the result.
And I think consistency is the key. I think consistency is so underrated. Consistency is what equals your success. It's taking that daily action day in, day out, no matter how you feel. It's getting up, dressing up, showing up, doing the stuff that you don't want to have to do, but you know that you need to in order to achieve your goals.
I remember, Rob, for you, that was one of the things that when I first heard you speak, it was in front of your townhouse complex, and you got up on a milk crate and you spoke and you said, just do one thing each and every day. Obviously, there's days when you're going to need to do a whole lot more, but just do one phone call or one email as a very minimum. As a very minimum, that always stuck with me.
Yeah. So, Kylie, I don't know if you meant that before, but that's what is called a triple utterance. So, do you want to say that again for people to? So, you said get up, show up, and what was the other one?
Get up, dress up, and show up.
There you go. That is a triple utterance. It's one of those things that's really catchy and easy to for people to remember. If you haven't yet, you should trademark that.
So look for that post to come out on the Property Developer Network social pages in the next few hours, few days. So
Kylie's just gone world famous. Get up, get up, dress up, show up.
That's it. I want to buy that T-shirt, Kylie. Let me know when it's available.
All right.
Okay, so that's number 2. What's stopping us from getting ahead? So far we've got our purpose or our why, which was number 1, and our goals, which is what we're actually trying to achieve. Next on the list is our identity. So who are we actually identifying ourselves as? Are we turning up to this property development game as a hobby, or are we turning up to it as a business? How are we treating ourselves, which then in turn informs how other people treat us as well?
Absolutely. I remember early on, many years ago, making phone calls, and I'd fumble and bumble my way through the phone calls with agents. And then I started to say, I'm a property developer. And I remember saying it a few times and going, oh my gosh, I'm a property developer, right? And it's all around the identity that comes with that, because if you sit there and say, oh, I'm learning or whatever, and I'm not saying BS yourself, but I'm saying when you start to assume the role of the person that you want to be, you'll be that person. Now, I used to say this in employment sense to my team when they wanted to go for different promotions. I'd say, always behave in the way of the person of the job that you're going for. Not the job you're doing now. You've still got to do that job, but of the job that you're going for. It makes it very easy from a recruitment point of view to appoint that person. And the same here. If you want to be a property developer, you can act like a property developer. You can be a property developer right now. Do some research on property development. Come to a Property Developer Network meetup. You're a property developer, and you need to keep saying those things over and over and over and over. And it's about creating the identity of the person that you want to be. And guess what happens? You become that person.
Absolutely.
One thing I've been sharing with students as they're going through this transition and they're starting building their property development business, and maybe they feel like a bit of a fraud or they're in student mode, and to help to create that shift with them, the languaging that we've used is you're in the professional development phase of building your property development business. And that sounds a whole lot more impressive and a whole lot more empowering than saying, hey, I'm learning how to do property development, or I'm learning how to do a deal. So if you start, you sit down in your office when you're going to work on your property development business, and you identify that you're in the professional development phase. When people go and become professionals in other industries, they have to go through different phases of getting their qualifications and their skills, and becoming a property developer is no different. So when you take that approach, the way that you feel and the results that you get and the actions that you take are very different.
Well, it's a business. Property is a business. I see far too many people who come into property and treat it like a hobby, and they get hobby-like results. And yet the most successful people, and Rob, you were fortunate enough to, obviously you're one, but also others that you spoke to last week in the Superstars session, they treat it like a business. They make business-like decisions. They leave emotion at the door. There's all sorts of numbers, data, analysis, facts, figures, et cetera, et cetera. It's a business. And so we need to start to take that approach. Property development is a business. You can make a lot of money in property development, but you can go out the back door in property development as well. And so you need to start to treat it like a business. Leave that emotion behind. Too many people do far too many things based on emotion, right? And so it's about, no, you need to do things based on the facts and treat this like a business.
And something very important, sorry, cutting you off, Rob. Something very important has just popped into my mind. And when we've dealt with students that have had setbacks in the past and they've had deals that have failed or have had negative financial consequences or results, then they've attached that to their identity. So you are not your past failures. You are not your successes. You are you. And you've had failures and you've had successes. So if you're basing your self-esteem on how successful you are or how unsuccessful you've been, then it's going to be really tough for you. So you are not your results. You are someone who has achieved results or you're not achieving results. But the identity thing with people that have had setbacks can be very tightly knit with them. And they're the people that often we have to spend a lot of work helping them to, do the next part of what we're going to be discussing, creating new beliefs about themselves. But if you are always looking at yourself through the rear vision mirror rather than the windscreen, to use that metaphor, then you're always looking back. So to explain that metaphor in more detail, if no one's heard about that. So when we're looking at life, or when we're looking at a car, you've got a windscreen, it's bigger than the rear vision mirror for a purpose. We want to be able to look back, but we need to be focused on where we're headed. So that's how we need to be living our life and setting our goals and with the actions that we're taking. Look back, what didn't work, what did we learn from those experiences, but be focused on moving forward and implementing what does work.
I love it.
And I think one of the reasons why people struggle with this is they are worried what other people will think of them. And Tony, you've got a really good saying, which I won't do justice to repeating, but it's, I am not what I think I am. Mm-hmm. I am not what you think I am, mm-hmm. but I am what I think that you think that I am.
You got it.
And what that really means is that we start to worry about what the other person might be thinking, but in reality, they're probably not thinking about that at all. They're probably thinking about their own issues and their own challenges and their own problems. And you're probably the furthest thing from their mind. And yet you have based your value and your worth on what you think they think of you. Absolutely. Rather than waiting to actually get the feedback actually from them.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
I'll give you an example. Real estate agents, right? We have to deal with the real estate agent, and a real estate agent doesn't call us back, right? So then a lot of the people will go, oh my gosh, the agent doesn't like me. Oh my gosh, the agent isn't going to give me the deal. Oh my gosh, he's not being helpful. Whop, 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 right? Well, guess what? Maybe the agent's exceptionally busy. Maybe the agent's got a family emergency. Maybe there's so many other things going on in that agent's mind. But like you said, Rob, we can change the way that we feel in an instant based on how we think about that particular situation, right? And it happens all the time. All the time I see that. I just used the example around the agent, but it's about it's what's the saying is what someone thinks about you is none of your business. None of it. You can't control it, right? So get over it. Move on with things, right? Because it's out of your control. You have to focus on what's within your control. You can't control what someone else thinks about you, says about you, doesn't say about you. It doesn't matter. But by golly, and this is the biggest fear. I know we're going to touch on fears soon. Maybe I've jumped the gun too early, but this is the biggest fear. Rob's nodding, so I have. Okay, totally unlike me. The biggest fear that people, I believe, that people have is the fear of being criticized by other people. That's the biggest one, not the fear of failure. Fear of failure is big, but it's then the next bit beyond the fear of failure, which is I have now failed. Now all the naysayers are going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to give it to me. And they're going to say, Tony, we told you shouldn't have done that. You should have left it to someone else. You weren't good enough. You're too old. You're too young. Right? That's the fear there that people are paralyzed by. And the thing that I love about the Property Developer Network is that it's a network of like-minded people in the property development space, because Jim Rohn talks about you're the average of your 5 closest people, right? And so if the people around you are bringing you down and are holding you back, and you know that you should be somewhere else, then find that other place. And if it's a Property Developer Network, then I know that Rob and the team will welcome you with open arms, because it's about having the like-minded people to help support you, collaborate with you, encourage you, pick you up, etc. So that's a big one, the fear of being criticized. And it happens with, not just the students, it happens with everybody, with everything. It's not just a property specific thing either.